Afternoon to one and all. I wanted to start this webinar. Today is a Guru Purnima with the slok Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Guru Namah. Well, on the behalf of Alembic Pharmaceutical Limited, I welcome you all, including our today's eminent speaker, Honorable T.K. Gallows sir, moderator, Honorable Suresh Jairwal sir, Honorable P. Karunanidhi sir, Senior Vice President, Alembic Pharmaceutical Limited, our next webinar speaker, Vikas, and all the participants from India and abroad. Now I will invite Mr. P. Karunanidhi sir, who is actually force behind conducting this webinar. He is always behind us. His continuous motivation and guidance help us to make such type of webinar for the benefit of the veterinarian. So I will invite Mr. P. Karunanidhi sir to introduce our eminent speaker.
Yeah, good afternoon to all the participants and the panelists and our eminent speaker today, Dr. Tarun Kumar Gallods sir, and also our moderator. So I take this opportunity and as a privilege for introducing Dr. Tarun Kumar Gallods. He is known as Camel Veterinarian of India. He is an editor for Journal of Camel Practice and Research, and he was HOD for the Department of Veterinary Surgery and Radiology of MJF College of Veterinary and Animal Science, Chomu, Jaipur. It is part of the Rajuwas College, Rajuwas University. Dr. Tarun Kumar Gallods he has vast experience of clinical surgery for more than 34 years. Most of his professional career has been devoted to camel practice. So, which is, Rajasthan is known for camel population. And he has developed several surgical techniques for camels, especially interdental wiring technique for mandibular fracture repair. So that is a specialty of Dr. Gallods sir. He is an editor-in-chief of Journal of Camel Practice and Research for more than 28 years. He has edited proceedings of international camel conferences held at Germany, Saudi Arabia, and Bikaner. Dr. Tarun Kumar Gallods was invited by World Organization for Animal Health, that is OIE, conducted in Paris, France, as a member of ad hoc committee. Only 6 members were called. So Dr. Gallods is also one of the members. So that conference was conducted on camel diseases in 2010. Dr. Tarun Kumar Gallods is recipient of 13 honors and awards during his professional career, and his professional achievements are equipped the small animal operation theatre with closed circuit televisions and modern facilities, developed mini laparoscopy technique for ovario hysterectomy in bitches, developed ultrasonographic procedure for scanning the abdomen of dogs undergoing operations in animal birth control program, and during his 34-year professional career, due to his work requirement for attending conferences, for also conducting conferences, he has visited 16 countries. These countries include USA, France, and Libya, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Al Ain, Bahrain, Oman, Sudan, Iran, Israel. So these are all, camel populated countries, Saudi Arabia, Kenya, and other countries like Estonia, Germany, Singapore, Malaysia. So for delivering lecture, and he is part of, he has published 187 clinical and research papers in international and national journal of repute, presented more than 70 papers in symposiums, conferences, etc.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karunanidhi Saab, Senior Vice President, Dr. Santosh Shinde, for inviting me, giving me this best opportunity to be interfaced with so many, I must say, delegates of webinar, not only from India, but from abroad also. So I welcome one and all, and again extending my sincere thanks to you, and thanks to Dr. S.K. Jirwal, who is a moderator of this webinar. And we had been closely associated since more than 2 decades. So friends, let us start today's topic. It's a new era window vision for emerging surgico-diagnostic techniques of animals. My webinar is a new era window vision for emerging surgico-diagnostic techniques of animals. And the friends, my another introduction is that I'm editor of Journal of Camel Practice and Research since last 27 years, and it has a very good NAS rating, about 6.8. So I welcome all delegates on behalf of Alembic as well, because Alembic has given this platform of continuing veterinary education, which is an e-learning platform for the veterinarians, and they chose me as a speaker. So I am really thankful to them. So friends, this emerging surgical diagnostics of animal will be presented in 17 sections. In first section, let us see that why are animals important to us. Animals play an important role in everyday life because the positive aspect of animals is that they give food security, source of protein, micronutrients. They give livelihood. They are companion animals. But negative aspect is that they are reservoirs or intermediate hosts for infectious diseases which affect public and animal health, economy, and environment. So the pets, best companion animal is dog. They are very important. They're a very smart sniffer, and they give other duties also. And people make them trained for sniffing. This is really very important to understand. The cows, they give milk, and they are responsible for white revolution. This is the backbone of economy. The goats, they give meat and milk. We all know sheep, they give meat and wool. The buffaloes, they give milk and meat. The equines, they are still used for sports, races, breeding. They're very important. And the great care and emotional attachment to horses, it's a big thing. The camel farming still plays a marginal role at global level because there are many underdeveloped nations where still, or in developing nations, still camel plowing is going on. But back to the Saudi Arabia or Arab world and Middle East, we find that racing camels with robots are being used popularly. And Bactrian camel races in Inner Mongolia and Russia is very popular. Camels are cared like anything to give them exercise. The Qatar has made a very big swimming pool for camels to give the exercise. Back to the India, it's a very famous international camel festival with camel decoration competitions, and then dances, obedience test, fur cutting competition. You can again see obedience test. Then back to Dubai, we see that camel races are really activity of every day. The tourism in Australia, the tourism sector in Ladakh and in Mongolia, Russia, and camel fighting competitions and wrestling competition in Afghanistan and Turkey is very popular. Fashion show in Saudi Arabia have come up these days, in Oman as well. It's a lot of popularity. Camel milk and its products, they are good for human health, particularly for diabetes. So nomads, they sell camel milk, and this is really very good for human health. A lot of diseases can be cured. Camel dairying is coming up in some of the countries like UAE, like Saudi Arabia, and automatic milking machines are there. Fully mechanized dairies are there. Milk products are there in supermarkets. Chocolates are there on duty-free shops. Camel milk soaps are there. So our beloved patients, animals expect modern facilities for diagnosis and treatment. So in section 2, we will discuss this, that diagnosing and treating multi-species animals is a big challenge to the vet, because every day there is a new case in the clinic, like the fractured dog, like an injured peacock, like a fractured monkey, like an injured raptor to reptile, like an injured pigeon, like an injured camel, like an injured horse, like a prolapsed tortoise, like an injured elephant, and A cow has eaten a lot of plastic, so you have to go for rheumatomy operation to remove it. The fractured calf and the buffaloes with a lot of surgical problems. So surgeons are always ready to restore the normalcy in animals. So in third section, we will see what surgeons they are doing through modern surgical diagnostic methods. Now, how to understand shifting from old to new technology. Now, all the participants, they must be thinking that what I am going to show them, the new technology. It's very simple, my dear. If you look to this, now in Corona period, everybody has purchased a digital thermometer. They have put aside mercury thermometer. Now, more so, you'll find in all the institutions, the thermal thermometer and digital thermometer is put aside. Now, you go in a train, old steam engines are no more available. Modern electric locomotives are there. Now, if you see the fashion, the technology also changes from old to new. Now, if you see old versus modern, we see in banking system that old passbook system, old entry system, but now it's just a contactless and you go to ATM and there are credit cards. Now, old versus modern, again in the food habits, local food market, now KFC, McDonald's are there. Now, when you type, the old typewriter is gone now, laptops are there. So our vision should be towards adopting new technologies, which we have already adopted, like in mobiles. Everybody wants a smart mobile. Now, new era veterinary surgery has developed, and we see in every day that what has been new, few glimpses are there. Say, for example, laser surgery for pets is introduced. Now, a game changer and gold standard in clinical diagnosis is MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. It's coming up very fast in the veterinary field. Of course, already there in canine field and equine field. Computed tomography, CT scan. And let me tell you that in India, first CT scan machine was there in Veterinary College, Raju was Bikaner. And this gives you one of the rarest diagnosis. So for example, in this pseudoaneurysm of left hepatic artery, you can see with the black arrow, it's really very difficult diagnosis, but CT scan can tell you this. Now we are doing many studies, cadaver studies in our CT scan machine, like camel's head, we are studying. In dogs, every day we are doing CT scan, so very easy. Veterinary endoscopy, it's very popular, you know. You can see inside the tubular organs like gastrointestinal tract, reproductive tract, and you can remove the foreign bodies. You can inseminate many things, and you can examine the mucosa. So video endoscopy is also very popular these days. Rhino endoscopy in equines, because there are upper respiratory tract infections in equines. So this is really a very good diagnostic aid. Now, ultra-modern operation theaters have taken place with all the gadgets, and animal is under inhalation anesthesia, completely under general anesthesia, and it's all parameters are monitored over there with a good team. I had been to Maximilian Ludwig University in Munich, and there I saw a ruminant clinic, and I saw hydraulic table and how they were operating the cow, and they are doing surgery of the hoof. Now, arthroscopic surgery in equines, it's very common these days because this is a racing animal. If there is a chip fracture, you have to remove chip by arthroscopic surgery, and many more affections can be dealt with. General anesthesia in cattle in South, in Namakkal, and some other colleges, they have started using general anesthesia in cattle. And the team came in 2014 at Bikaner also, they demonstrated administering general anesthesia in cattle. It's very easy. Now, there is always a fear out of anesthesia that pet owners, they need a safe, open environment to share their concern about anesthesia, that my animal may not die under anesthesia. So here they say that my pet is like my family member, and I do not know whether I would survive this loss or not. So kindly ensure that my pet doesn't suffer and doesn't die in anesthesia. So what vets they do, they just tell the owner, and the American Society of Anesthesiologists, they have made certain scores, and we say that these are ASA scores. They help make anesthesia safer for your pet patient. Now, how to count this score? It's very easy. Grading of risk of anesthesia, class 1, there is a minimal risk. It's a normal healthy patient, 0.3% fatalities. Class 2, slight risk, again 0.3% fatalities, slight to mild systemic disease there. And class 3, moderate risk, 1.7% fatalities can be there. Obvious systemic disease, anemia, moderate dehydration, fever, etc. can be there. Class 4, high risk, 13% mortality can be there with severe systemic life-threatening disease. Still, you have to give anesthesia. And class 5, extreme risk, again, there is 13% fatalities. In moribund cases, patient will probably die with or without surgery. And then class E is emergency surgery. Now, a lot of good tools have come up to treat the acute and chronic conditions of the pets. So, for example, acute kidney disease, the BUN level, serum creatinine level has gone up, and the hemodialysis is the only answer. So in many institutes, people have started doing hemodialysis for the dog. Now, animal orthotics and prosthetics, they are really needed for amputee animals. Now, it's a diet service for animal in need of custom bracing or prosthetic limbs to provide or restore comfort and mobility. Now, what is prosthetic? That involves use of artificial limb, prosthesis. And what is orthotics? That involves precision and creativity in the design and fabrication of external braces. Now we see that this cat has received prosthetic legs. Since birth, cat was not having hind legs. So now she is comfortable, she can walk. Now this dog was having Cushing disease and there were weak muscles. So robotic legs were provided, and you can see a very nice support. The dog can walk so properly, getting support. This is a paralyzed dog getting a wheel cart adapted, and it can walk and can have a good lifespan. Then limb and beak prosthesis, you can see here a limb prosthesis. Here is a beak prosthesis. And here in a tortoise, you can see there is a wheel because it cannot walk. And here in the dog, you can see the limb prosthesis. In a horse, you can see the prosthetic leg. And in elephant also, you can see a prosthetic leg. In cows, there are a lot of prosthetic legs in India are being made by my own student. He is doing a very good work in Jaipur, and he is Dr. Mathur, and he is doing a wonderful job. The prosthetic tail for disabled tailless alligator. It was made by a new 3D scanning and printing technology. Now you can see this is a prosthetic tail given to this alligator. Now, the cows, when they go on pasture, they cannot see in 360 degrees without moving their heads. But with this panoramic vision, while standing, they can see in 360 degrees, and they can select an area with abundance of the green grass, and they can go there for the pasture. Now, what is the newest innovation in veterinary medicine? Let us know. The world of medicine, including veterinary medicine, is a constantly changing one. And the adage, adapt or die, has never been more relevant than in current times, because the technology is constantly advancing. So this is in section 4, we will be discussing. So some medicines, I say Convenia. This is a long-acting antibiotic, and if you provide this, it can give effect up to 7 to 10 days for skin infection, dental, urinary infection. Then for ear medication, there are sustained release of this ear drop, and it helps significantly in treating ear infection. Need not to put the ear drop every day. Heat activates the medicine in ear canal, and it allows slow continuous release of drug over 7 days. Now, Serenia, this is an amazing medication that alleviates nausea from chemotherapy, abdominal surgery, pancreatitis, and it improves the pain scores. It improves the appetite postoperatively in dogs and cats. Then Cytopint. This blocks the chemical at the skin nerve that causes itching. So a lot of cases of mange. are there in animals, and there is a constant itching, particularly in dogs. If you give this medicine, it stops itching. So dogs are not disturbed, and otherwise they spend most of the time in scratching. Now, in horses, there is some nervous neurological disease which is related with vitamin A. So one urine test has been developed. And what are these neurological diseases? This is known as equine neuroaxonal dystrophy or degenerative myeloencephalopathy. This disease can be diagnosed by the urine of a horse by a test. We call this an ultra performance liquid chromatography atmosphere pressure chemical ionization mass spectrometry for horse urine. It measures the amount of vitamin E and counting metabolites in the urine. Now you can see that this urine is collected and this is extraction goes on, and now reading is taken in mass spectrometry. The metabolites of vitamin E are measured, and then accordingly you can decide for the treatment. This is the mass spectrometer instrument. Now, regenerative medicine for equines. Now, this has replaced another use of other medicine like steroids or NSAIDs, like anything for all musculoskeletal problems. Say, for example, if you collect the blood from jugular vein, you can collect PRP, plasma-rich platelets, and this is animal cells. You can just take out the stem cells out of this, and mesenchymal cells isolation can take place. And from here, you can collect the adipose tissue. And from sternum, you can collect the bone marrow. And then you can treat what? You can treat the fracture. You can treat the injured tendon. You can treat the laminitis. You can treat the arthritis. And you can treat the injured collateral ligaments, etc. So this is really a very good tool which is coming up. So animal cell therapies, we say ACTS, it's coming up very fast in use, and these are commercially also available. So in horses, we will see that how this is being done. Now, race and sport horses are prone to injuries of joint, tendon, ligament very often. Now, ultrasound of tendon to assess the injury and repair is really very important tool, and you can just know that where is the seat of injury, and you can collect the stem cell from the external area, and you can see in syringe it is coming up, the fluid is coming, the blood is coming, bone marrow is coming, and from the fat also you can collect the stem cells, and these are multipotent stromal cells. They can differentiate into a variety of cell types like osteoblasts, chondrocytes, myocytes, adipocytes, etc. And then you can inject the finished product over here directly into the tendon, here directly at the coronary in cases of laminitis, and here at the close to the ligament. Now, there are rehabilitation treadmill exercises after stem cell therapy. And now in equine world, this is really something different and new. And in USA, there is open house at Hartpuri's Equine Therapy Center, which is very common. A lot of people come to see that how on this treadmill they give exercise to the equines. So this is really a very good specialization. Now, platelet-derived products in veterinary medicine, they are of great use. I think that Jirwal will agree that in corneal ulcer, he can use these products for oral and maxillofacial surgery, for skin wounds, for articular injury, for musculoskeletal tendinopathies. You can use these products. Now, platelet-rich plasma or PRP is a regenerative medicine treatment that delivers a high concentrate of platelets in the form of blood plasma to a lesion, increasing the amount of growth factors at the site to helping in healing. And you can see that how this is being prepared. Now, platelet-rich plasma, you can see it's a new treatment option for the dogs with lameness. Even in the dogs, you can see this is being injected into the joint. So platelet-derived products, we say the PDPs, they are envisioned as economic, safe, fast, and easily obtained formulation in both tissue engineering and regenerative therapeutics. This is really an upcoming and new promising branch. The sources of growth factor cytokines are there, and they form the minimally invasive and very simple blood harvesting methods by which you can do this. Now, if you see to this fractured bone, at this side, this PDP product is being injected, and then you can see growth factors, they just increase the activity and healing takes place. So that is how it is done. Now, again, here you see in laminitis in coronat directly, they are injecting this in the vascular channels at the coronat around the third phalanx. And if you look to this picture, you see here that vascular net was compromised in this angiography. We don't see much blood vessels. And this is a case of laminitis. Animal is unable to bear weight on day 0. But here, once that the adipose-derived mesenchymal cells and plasma-rich platelet were injected with 3 endovenous administration, you can see very good vascularization has taken place and animal has started bearing weight. So that is the way it is effective, and you need not to administer any of the NSAID and corticosteroids. Now, another good method of giving more oxygen to the tissues of animals is hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. And this is really very good. This HBOT speeds up healing of carbon monoxide poisoning cases, gangrene cases, stub-borne wounds, and infection in which tissues are starved for oxygen. So in these chambers, you can keep animal for a given time under the pressure of oxygen, and you can see very good healing is there. Now, portable hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy is there, and they can take this machine anywhere you want. And this increases the amount of oxygen your blood can carry, and with repeated treatments, the temporary extra high oxygen levels encourage normal tissue oxygen levels. So this is really good. Now, the back muscles are very important for the horse, particularly when they are running. For race horses, because they propel the limbs. So electrical stimulation of the lumbosacral region in standing horse is another good mode of therapy. And you can see that it produces significant rhythmical pelvic movement, which is required for a racing horse. And flexion and extension movement of the hind limb joints are correlated with these movements. And then finally, may create training effects of initial mobilization, and later on, they can stabilize with such movements. So this is really a very good therapy. Now we come to the another topic, that future of veterinary medicine with emerging technologies. And this is section 5. We deal with the virtual and augmented reality to artificial intelligence, that how this will help in diagnosing the various diseases of animals and how they help with the treatment. Now, this is a new thing. Many of my friends might be knowing, but they have not seen this in a classified form. Now, when we talk of virtual and augmented realities, this is impact of emerging technologies, that they help us in examining, diagnosing, treating, managing clinical work, and this is augmented. So VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, and AI is artificial intelligence. It's really very important. Now, what is virtual reality? In virtual reality, nothing is there. Brain receives the information from eye and ear to sense reality, and there is another world around you. And what we see virtual reality in veterinary medicine, it's effective tool in training, especially in situations where the knowledge may be complex, impossible, or prohibitively expensive to experience in the real world. It is dangerous or involve understanding of very spatial concepts and development of specific psychomotor skills. It is being taken by this virtual reality. VR simulators, virtual reality simulators are there. They enable them to handle keyhole surgical instruments like laparoscopic instruments. you can just get a training. Patient being trained on a combination of physical model and digital simulation. Actual patient is not there, but there is a physical model and digital simulation is there, culminating in the illusion of actually performing a special procedure. Then we are training where the training veterinarian dons a handset and guided simply for the surgical procedure. Now here I take you to a zoo of the China, where they have removed the live animals and replaced them with AR, VR, and holographic laser projection exhibits. It's a very bold initiative. And once you don these goggles, you can see the animals, they look real. The authentic digital recreations of zoo animals have taken place and people are moving in the vehicle. They have a special specs and now they can see the animals and they are digital recreations, but they look real and they are moving in the forest. So this is really a very good example of virtual reality. Now, trainers, after donning the headset, they can see the animal on the screen as if it has come out, it's moving. You can see the 3D structure of this animal, and students and surgeons learn from the virtual reality technology. They can see any animal, a 3D structure, their anatomy as well, any species you name, and you can get it. The University of Colorado, they study anatomy through virtual reality technology, and you can see after donning this headset, you can see all the organs. There is something liver or lung or heart or some other organ, and you can see the 3D picture of this. That's the best way of teaching the anatomy, like we teach in nursery toddlers by giving them the toys that how a vehicle looks like. So they just see a 3D picture of this. And now here also, you can see a 3D picture. Now, animal surgery models. Now, animal surgery, say for example, dental extraction by virtual simulation training system software is there. And you can just learn that how to extract a tooth. Once that animal is there, this is not a real animal, this is a virtual animal, but you can carry out the procedure, and this is all, everything goes virtual, but you learn as if you are doing on live animal. Rheumatomy operation, another animal surgery example by virtual simulation, training system software is there, and you can learn rheumatomy operation. Now, emasculation or castration operation, you can see that how to ligate the spermatic cord in this. So that's also you can learn by this virtual simulation. Then the fracture management, internal fixation of femoral fracture, this also you can learn by virtual simulation training system. So this is really a very good tool for the veterinarians to learn. So virtual reality platform, which provides doctors with a flight simulator for surgery, has received accreditation from the Royal College of Surgeons of England. Now here you can see they are learning that how to fix up the problem of vertebral canal or disc prolapse, and the same is done on the patient very easily. So they can make a good practice on these virtual reality models. Now, augmented reality. Augmentation means just to enhance something. So what they do, that's a growing field of technology where real life is modified and enhanced by computer generated sights and sounds. The most common use is seen through mobile apps. And you can see the point your device camera at something that app recognizes, and it will generate 3D animation or video superimposed over whatever is on your camera screen. The effect makes the computer generated item appear like it is really there. So augmented reality, it's really with the help of the apps, it helps you learning a lot. Now you can see this girl is wearing here the spec just to see the objects. This is wearable augmented reality, but with a mobile, the same object is there on the mobile screen because there is an app. And spatial AR is there, augmented reality in the space. The objects are in the space, and she can even take in hand like as if it's in hand, but they are not really in the hand. So that's how we learn the animal anatomy and other things. And here is the thing which ophthalmologists should mind, like Dr. Jirwal, that ophthalmologic surgery, augmented reality is of a great value because you can see the eye as a 3D structure, and then you can know that which part is injured, from where to start surgery. So this is really a very good tool. Now, this augmented reality in veterinary medicine, while VR is superb in situation where full immersion in a simulated training environment preferable, AR lends itself to medical uses where visualization of intrinsically complex data and 3D scan information is there, like CT scan, MRI, X-ray. The information is there, then they make a 3D picture. Say, for example, now this is an X-ray of a bone tumor, but this is a 3D picture of a CT scan. And you can now see that what is the extent of the tumor. And that's how the surgeons, they know that from where to cut the bone, how much surgery has to be done, which bone is involved. So surgeons, they can plan now, and they can just see this 3D structure from all the sides. So that is the biggest advantage of augmented reality, that it can make a 3D scan information. Now, for anatomy study, the 3D anatomy study for all the animals is good tool. And this is really, again, anatomy. There is easy anatomy tool for the zoo animals, for llama, and for other animals. Now, training veterinary team how to use key pieces of equipment by augmented reality. Now you can see this surgeon, he is learning this is laparoscopic instrument, as if one is doing on the live on the animals and getting an experience that how to handle these instruments, because the way he is handling here, it will appear in the screen. Now, augmented reality is really a very good educational tool. And this 3D printing is a game changer for veterinary surgery. And that's what our topic is, that emerging technologies of diagnostic, surgical diagnostic tool. So this is really a 3D printing is a game changer, I must say. Now, I give an example here. You can see this was the dog having a swelling over here, and a CT scan was taken over here. But when a 3D picture was made, they found that how many bones were fractured, what caused the swelling over here, and then they operated accordingly. And now you can see here swelling has disappeared after operation. So it really helps surgeons to do a lot. Now, artificial intelligence in veterinary medicine. This is really a wonderful thing in medical imaging processing and assessment. Medical imaging means imaging of animals as well. You can say veterinary imaging as well, no problem. But from rapid yet accurate and sensitive interpretation of radiograph, ultrasound images, MRI, CT scan, they tell you everything. Because what happens that veterinarians, they take X-ray, but still diagnosis is not there. They are confused. They take CT scan, they still cannot reach on diagnosis. They do ultrasonography, still confusion is there. So artificial intelligence will collect information, verify the diagnosis, confirm or modify the treatment plan. So you will get a treatment plan also. So artificial intelligence ensures a detailed, accurate healthcare record which can be maintained, and then veterinarians of the future would be capable of providing a standard of care, treatment, and diagnosis that far exceeds the present scenario. So artificial intelligence would give an accurate imaging diagnosis in pets in few seconds. Now, how it is in few seconds, you will see that veterinary radiology diagnosis using artificial intelligence. Now, what you see here, we see a dorsoventral view, and most of the thoracic case is occupied by the heart. And the diagnosis given to you by artificial intelligence that severe cardiomegaly is there. Another X-ray is there, and we see a big circular mass over here, and they have made a circle that here is the pathology, and they have give a soft tissue pulmonary mass or tumor type lesion is there. Now, you send them information, whether it is a CT scan or X-ray, they quickly analyze this and populate the data and give their diagnosis and treatment. So a Vitology software is there, which has artificial neural network. And this neural network is trained to know or recognize normal and abnormal X-ray images. And within 90 seconds, they will give you the diagnosis of the X-ray. Now, this artificial intelligence powers new X-ray software. So in San Diego, you can see such type of software is there. Now, artificial intelligence has also made smart farms. You have 300, 400 sheep, and you don't know that which sheep is sick because it's not physically possible to check each and every sheep. So with the help of the wearable, smart camera, sensors, they just come to know that which animal is sick and what medicine is to be administered in this particular animal. So smart farms with the help of artificial intelligence are on rise. Now, this artificial intelligence is now new frontier for individual cattle identification based on the use of AI and computer vision technologies, contactless, and they will tell you that this cow is so much such and such cow, and this is sick, and you start treatment doing this. So with this artificial intelligence, now I think animal testing is next to be replaced, and the artificial intelligence will work. So friends, the modern diagnostic and imaging technology instrumentation or devices in the present digital age are many. I will discuss only few. You can see CT scan of an Asiatic lion in section number 6 out of 70 we will be discussing. Now, thermography is a really wonderful tool, and you come to know about the increased blood supply, inflammation, and you can just treat a particular area, particular part, body part where inflammation is there. The infrared imaging is there, very important in the dog to locate the inflammation at the site. It's really, because it causes, inflammation causes pain also in dogs and cats. It's a really good diagnostic tool, and you can just hold the thermal camera in your hand and just making diagnosis. No need to touch the animal, and you know that where is the inflammation because there is more redness over there, and we come to know about the inflammation site, and there, if you press, there will be pain. Now, a thing which Dr. S.K. Jirwal has introduced in our university, that is electroretinography. Now, this electroretinography, we call that ERG. This is a very important tool for knowing the functional status of retina. Now, what happens that anybody bringing a blind dog, cataractous dog, expects that the moment doctor will do operation, my dog will start seeing and vision will be restored. But that doesn't happen many times. Operation is done successfully because the retina is not functional. The physiology retina is not there. So you have to do ERG before going for the cataract operation and some other ophthalmic disease. So you can see here, like in ECG, the waves, rhythmic waves are there. It's a normal vision of a dog. Retinography, this really tells you about the functional status of retina. And now you can see anybody bringing the dog for the cataract operation, the dog is not having vision. And they feel that after doing cataract operation, I think my dog will be able to see, or vision is restored. But that doesn't happen every time because retina is not functioning well. And electroretinography is the only tool where you know the functional status of retina. And you can see here that this is ERG of normal vision. You can see the rhythmic waves over here. This is eye with poor vision. You can see rhythmicity is not there. That means the retina is not functional. Over here, And these are the parameters you can see over here, rod and cones and flicker. And this is the system that how ERG is done. Dog has to be under general anesthesia in the dark room, and various type of electrodes are applied here and there. And then you just record the electron retinography. And this is really a good electrophysiology of vision. It's a good science. And progressive retinal atrophy is another reason that patient can't see, they lose vision. And a cataractous dog may have progressive retinal atrophy. So before doing cataract operation, you should go for this. Now, dream of every vet is that there should be ultra-modern operation theater and adjunct facilities. So these days, modular operation theaters are there, where even the air of operation theater is sterile with all the tools, life-saving devices are there. But there should be an adjunct hematobiochemical laboratory for diagnosis of clinical disease and pre-surgical evaluation of the patient, like autoanalyzer, biochemistry analyzer, and there should be facility for the microscopy of urine and blood as well. Now, newer branches like imaging, radiodiagnosis, telemedicine, telesonography, and teleradiology have emerged. And tele means you are sitting at a distance and you can just tell the people that the diagnosis is like this, and you can suggest them the treatment. The imaging diagnosis is in many ways like digital radiography, ultrasonography, scintigraphy, MRI, CT scan. So this is really, these days, imaging modality has gone like anything. But when you have so many radiographs, so many pictures, where to keep them? You should have a filmless radiology lab. So there is one thing, we call this as a PACS, Picture Archiving and Communication System, where on the hard disk in your department, if you are taking a CT scan, whether you are taking a sonogram, whether you are taking a digital X-ray, all these are there, and they go classified in classified form, and every doctor on his table, they have one laptop, and they can see in their laptop the pictures, X-ray being taken of the animal, and later also they can see it and then they can analyze it. So this specialist is analyzing a maxillofacial 3D X-ray image of a dog before proceeding for the operation. Now, latest 3D, 4D ultrasound machines are there with Doppler technology and echocardiography. It's very, very important. Now, see the advancement even in the ultrasonography. Now, ultrasonography in small animal and equine practice is routinely used as a diagnostic aid, and in ruminants it is not fully exploited except in pregnancy, but there could be numerous organs that can be scanned using a ultrasound scanner. Now, Doppler ultrasound, you see, you can know that how blood flows through a blood vessel. So that is the biggest advantage of Doppler ultrasound. So Doppler principle is there. Now, many of the diagnoses by ultrasound are very important. So here, they have diagnosed the hydronephrosis due to obstruction in ureter. Now, the 3D and 4D imaging, the 4D ultrasound allows us to add live streaming video of the images, motion of the fetal heart or valves, and blood flow in various vessels. This, you know, in 3D imaging, you can see the fetus in all the direction, and you can see even omphalocele. This is the omphalocele, the umbilical hernia in a fetus was diagnosed with 3D picture. Now, canine renal lymphoma was diagnosed with this. You can just measure the kidney length in ultrasound. Then another modality, which is very popular these days, is computed tomography or CT scan. Now, CT scan makes use of computer processed combination of X-ray measurements taken from different angles to produce cross-section. Cross-sectional is tomography word, images that is in the slices of different areas, and you can see the object in various planes. And many other types of CT, they also exist, like positron emission tomography PET and single photon emission computed tomography SPECT are there. Now, CT is a diagnostic imaging procedure. It has become a commonplace in first opinion practices. Very first, you should go for CT scan and thereafter with another test. Now, you can see a CT scan being taken in a dog. Now, this is CT scan in a python to diagnose her lung problems at Columbus Zoo. So how important zoo animals are, that they are being diagnosed by advanced diagnostic techniques. And you will be surprised to see endotracheal intubation over here. You can see the intubation over here in the python. The whole body CT scan, computed tomography of a dog. You can see the whole abdomen. You can see in various planes the abdomen, and you can just diagnose the things. Now here, even some of the things which cannot be diagnosed by plain X-ray, so here you can see a thin layer of annular. Here the bone defect area is there. It's a very thin bone over here, but after 60 days, the healing has taken place, and you can see here after grafting that a new bone has come up, and it's very smooth. So CT scan gives you a very good diagnosis. Now this dog with the elbow having a dysplasia, and you just see it by the CT scan, and you come to know this is another case of elbow dysplasia, which is diagnosed by CT scan. Then you can do the multiplanar reconstruction that allows image to be formatted, and you can see now in 3 planes, that's a sagittal, transverse, and dorsal plane. You can see the body of the animal. Now here, if we see, we find that in CT angiography, a very rare thing was diagnosed, and it was a portoazygous shunt. This portoazygous shunt was diagnosed over here, which is really a very rare diagnosis. Now, if we see that whether we can diagnose by USG, still we are confused. You need to have CT. Yes, many times you need to have, because here urinary bladder CT was taken and a mass was visible at the neck of the bladder. Now, it's still not clear that how big was the mass. When CT was taken, then you can see the red arrow, and the mass was quite big, and the soft tissue attenuating mass you can see over here. It was extending in the urethra. The osteosarcomas are diagnosed by the X-ray, and then if you make a CT scan 3D picture, you really know that how much extensive this is, whether you have to resect the cancerous tissue or you need to do amputation, that you have to decide. And this already we have seen the 3D picture of a bone cancer, and this is courtesy Dr. Sakar Palicha, leading veterinary imaging expert at Rajuvas, Bikaner. Now this is a fracture of vertebra. You can see over here, and you can see over here a radiolucent line, another fracture. So these are diagnosis, a difficult diagnosis can be done by the CT scan. Degenerative bone disorders, you can see this is the X-ray, but this is a 3D picture after CT scan. You can see degenerative joint disorder of Stiefel. Now, if metastasis taken place in thoracic cavity, it's visible in the CT scan, but when you make a 3D picture, that will make minus the lungs, but actual cancerous tissue is visible, that how much extensive metastasis has taken place in the thoracic region. And then you can decide about the treatment and fate of the animal. Now, malignant hepatic mass, you can see such a big liver. Malignant hepatic mass is there, and this was being diagnosed by CT scan. Then another very important tool for diagnosis is MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. It's a highly sensitive and non-invasive technique, providing accurate and detailed anatomic images with good contrast and spatial resolution. The CNS diseases in small animals all are diagnosed by this. Only extremities and head can be imagined in large animals. It is useful in diagnosis of musculoskeletal disease in animals to understand the pathogenesis of navicular disease, traumatic arthritis, osteochondritis in equine, and wobbler syndrome in dogs. It is especially used to differentiate an inflammatory process from neoplastic mass, tumor, or peritumor edema. So this is really a very important tool which can be used, but it is contraindicated in pregnancy. Now, MRI is gold standard for soft tissue imaging, and you can just do soft tissue imaging of brain, spinal cord, the joint ligaments, and then tendons and ligaments. But here, if you see, you can diagnose a brain tumor by the MRI. This is really a very good tool to diagnose these things. So in USA, a neuroscientist trained the dogs to perch over the MRI machine so that when they require any time in their lifetime MRI, due to the sound of MRI, they are not deterred. So this is really, they train the dogs like this. So MRI in a dog is being done. In a squirrel, this is being done. In an MRI of foot in a horse is being done. The diagnosis of hydrocephalus through MRI. This diagnosis of brain tumor by MRI. This is herniated disc. Here you can see the disc is pressing the spinal cord over here. And these days, the hybrid scanning technique is there. Like you can just take a PET scan and then you just put it side by alongside the CT and MRI scans, and you get both the information of anatomy and metabolic information together. Now, if we see that there was a case where PET image is there, CT image is there, and when we fuse PET and CT image, what comes out to be? This is the PET image, this is a CT image, and this is a combination of both. Now, what is diagnosis? PET identifies active lesion. This is arrow. Active lesion is identified, and this is a fragment at distal border of navicular bone, but it is more clear when it is fused. So this is a hybrid imaging technique. Another example, you can see this is a PET image, this is a CT image, and this is a PET and CT again together. And you can see that diagnosis is there, that there is ossification of a ligament which is attached to the navicular bone, and there is ossification over here. So that is how we diagnose. Now, what is PET? Positron emission tomography of equine foot. It's really very important, and many times it helps in diagnosis when you cannot diagnose by other modalities. Then single photon emission computed tomography, SPECT. It operates on similar principle as PET, with the important distinction that the radionuclides used in SPECT experiment exhibit longer half-lives, whereas in PET, the half-life is only few seconds. But here, half-life can be in SPECT about more than 6 months and emit gamma photons of varying energies, and this is really good. Now, multimodality SPECT and MRI images reveal a large tumor in a mouse bearing uranium-87 cell xenograph. Now, if we see the three views, axial, sagittal, and coronal, this is the SPECT result, this is the MRI result. But when we combine both of these together, we see that a very good boundary of the tumor is there. And now this is a 3D picture over here, and you can see the boundary of the tumor over here. And this was a prostatic cancer. And here in SPECT and CT oncology together, you can see here A image, only SPECT image, and now B image is the SPECT and CT together. Then the C image, you can see the radiopharmaceutical, how much it was taken, and borders of the tumor you can see. And then in D image, you can just make the borders, and E image, again, you can combine both of them together, and we know about the extent of the tumor. And that's how, and this is another view. There are two views. Upper is coronal, lower is transaxial. And here is the 3D picture on right side of the tumor, prostatic tumor. So now another good thing, Dr. Jirwal should give attention, being ophthalmologist, that gold nanoparticles, they enhance ophthalmic imaging. So one is the optical coherence tomography, OCT, and second is the photoacoustic imaging, PAI. As the most promising technology is amenable to the use of gold nanoparticles for molecular imaging. Now see how when laser is passed, there is enlargement, magnification of the tissue, and you can diagnose the thing. So this is really something good. Then nuclear scintigraphy is another nuclear medicine technique where highly sensitive advanced procedure radioisotopes are used to detect the functional abnormality of the body system. The radionuclides commonly used for thyroid imaging are isotopes of iodine and technetium as pertechnetate. Now here you can see that this is the accumulation, more accumulation of the iodine. So this has been taken up, and this is the tumor. And here, when there are more hot spots, it's increased, so then it is taken up by the tissue. The tissue size is more, and that's a tumor. In cold spots, the radioactivity is decreased. So right kidney shows more activity, so there is a tumor over here. Now we come to another section, which is section number 7, laparoscopy and thoracoscopy. This is minimal invasive surgical technique, and this is really a keyhole surgery these days, taking biopsies of liver, pancreas, lymph nodes, performing cryptorchid operation, ovariectomy, spaying, pericardiectomy in thorax. So a lot of things can be done by minimum trauma to the tissue. So laparoscopy for research and clinical diagnosis, therapeutic purposes, being used for oophorectomies, hysterectomies, laparoscopic surgery. This is scarless surgery and better alternative to laparoscopic sterilization where big incisions are given. It allows direct examination of abdominal cavity and only minimal superficial surgical intervention is there. Now, thoracoscopy is done for treatment of pleura, lung, mediastinum, great vessel, pericardium, and esophagus, and visceral inspection in horses affected with pleuropneumonia and other thoracic and esophageal disorders are there. So this allows a better visualization of the thoracic cavity, particularly for pleuropneumonia cases. Now, laparoscopy is a really good tool, and these days, I think many of the veterinary colleges, even the private practitioners, they have laparoscopes with them. And here in our department where I was working, so courtesy of Dr. Praveen Bishnoi, that this picture you can see on laparoscopy is being done to do ovary hysterectomy in a dog. So we also had one laparoscope with us, the department. And this is now the research is continuing, and this is by courtesy of Dr. Mahendra Tanwar, is a leading soft tissue and laparoscopic surgeon, and the research is still on laparoscopy. And then there are variants of laparoscopes like single port access technique for laparoscopy, where only one port is given, and cutting gas technology is there. With port laparoscopy surgery, which is very popular these days. With single port laparoscopic assisted ovary hysterectomy is being done, and a modified glow port technique in dog is being used. See, the pneumoperitoneum is created by 10 millimeter mercury pressure, and this is established by insufflation of carbon dioxide. And here, sealing and division of suspensory ligament is done by a laparoscopic forceps. The removal of the uterus from the abdomen by the Alexis wound retractor. Now, we talk of endoscopy. Endoscopes are there, and these are the tubes having a light source and camera on other end. And These are minimal invasive diagnostic modality and best way to document mucosal inflammation, hyperemia, active bleeding, irregular mucosal surface, and facilitates biopsy in tubular organs like GI tract, respiratory tract, urogenital organs. Now, endoscopy, you can see we are doing even in the camels, endoscopy of stomach in a dog, and that's how the endoscope goes in the stomach, and it can go up to the duodenum, and it can retract back the foreign bodies, and it has the forceps, and the two types of forceps, an oval cup shape, and second is alligator cups. And here on right side, you can see that there is a biopsy being taken by these forceps. And here you can see that from the esophagus of a dog, a fish hook is being removed by this. So you need not to go for esophagotomy. So that's how we call this minimum invasive surgery. And this is a really good tool. Now here there is a coin in the stomach of a dog. Now this coin is being caught by the laparoscope alligator forceps, and it is taken out. So the dog is all right, otherwise it will have gastritis and other problems. Now pulse oximetry, everyone of us started knowing when Corona came, and everybody was keeping a pulse oximeter with them to see the oxygen, whether it is more than 95 or less than 95. But to know the emergency or cardiopulmonary function of our pets, we also need pulse oximetry. You can use the same instrument, or you can use this connected to this device also. And we know about the oxygen status of the dog through pulse oximeter or veterinary oximeter. You can put it on the tongue even in the anesthetized dog. Then interventional radiology or minimum invasive surgery, they are evolving specialties and they give advanced image guidance allowing less invasive approaches and intervention, and can be used to treat airway obstruction, urinary tract obstruction, vascular anomalies, tumors, just to name a few. So in 8th section, we will deal with this. You can see the interventional radiology, passing of the catheter in equine acini is going on. Now here you can see this dog, 8-year dog, was coughing, and you can see the stenosis over here of the trachea. And since past 18 months, so the trachea was constricted. So the stent was put into the trachea, now you can see. And this dog has improved dramatically after putting the stent because there is no more stenosis, and dog can take oxygen very well. So the length of stent is only this much. This you are seeing is an endotracheal tube. Now, in dorsoventral view also, you can see the stent. Wherever there was stenosis, stent was applied, and this can cure stenosis of organ. Now, intervention for ureteral obstruction in dogs and cats. So, double pigtail stents are used to divert urine from renal pelvis to the bladder through the ureter. Now, you can see in renal pelvis, a lot of calculi are there, and you can just divert the urine directly from here, just bypassing the ureter, and it's going in the urinary bladder. So this is a catheter is being used, pigtail catheter we call. There are many intravascular procedures are being used. We call this a pinhole surgery. They involve the use of wires and catheters within a blood vessel to access areas that are difficult to reach surgically. Stents can be placed to occlude or improve blood flow. Coil embolism for intrahepatic portosystemic shunts involves placing numerous coils in shunting vessel to occlude the blood flow. Chemoembolism in nasal tumors, chemoembolism of large non-resectable liver tumors to provide drug directly to the tumor is being used. So embolization is really very much necessary in many cases to where you need not to use embolic agents. So pinhole surgery for intravascular procedure, the surgeons are getting ready for this, and you can see the stent and they are getting ready for applying the stent. Now here you can see a digital subtraction photogram where we see that there was a thrombus in aorta and blood was not going further. And thrombectomy, this thrombus was removed, and you can see now the blood has started flowing further in distributaries of this artery. So this is really the thrombectomy operation is a very important part where you need to have a special catheter, and that is passed across the blood vessel, and clot is being taken out. It is retracted to thrombectomy. Thrombus has to be broken, and it will come out with this by the curative. Now, in next session, that is section 9, we will deal with few advanced wild animal surgeries. And sometimes I feel that wild animal facilities are more advanced than the domestic animals. Now, see, the root canal treatment is going on in a panther. Now, here, one orangutan, 40 years old, undergoes emergency appendectomy at Brookfield Zoo, Chicago. And here, the first brain surgery was done to treat the hydrocephalus in a fur seal recovering from the surgery at veterinary School of Veterinary Medicine at Tufts University. Now, this liposomes stem cell process was given to the joint of the Hungarian tiger so that the joint problem is solved in this tiger. The surgery for urinary tract stones in a 15-year-old Sumatran tiger was done in Sacramento Zoo. Now, keyhole surgical method was used to remove a diseased gallbladder in a bear. Now, avian surgery is also very popular at many wildlife health centers where injured birds are being brought in. The dental procedure in Sumatran tiger at Howlett's Wild Animal Park is being done. This is really very, very common. A broken tooth repair in Sumatran tiger at Taronga Western Plain Zoo is being done. You can see over here that how do they repair. So vets, they do great service, and these are the young ones of the orangutans and taken from one side to another side. And vasectomy is internal surgery in elephant, and while hosting him into a modified standing position, only then you can perform the vasectomy operation. So this is very special in zoo animal or wild animals, the operation. Now here there is a moon bear, is Asiatic black, intubated for surgery because surgery was done for missing left forepaw, being wild trapped in a trap. It was injured and avulsion was there, so it was surgery was done. This emergency bowel obstruction surgery was done, and a masticated lemon-sized mass of a bamboo was removed from a 15-month-old panda cub in National Zoo. Now, robotic surgery was done in a lion to remove adrenal tumor. Can you imagine that robotic surgery at Lodi Veterinary Hospital, Italy, it was being done. General anesthesia and intubation was done to this lion. Surgical team is ready for this. Site is prepared. Now surgeons are working, and you can see the robotic surgery will be done. And now these are robotic arms which have come in the picture, and the surgeon sitting over here guiding robots how to perform the surgery. And here, after surgery, 3 hours of the surgery, the lion was released in natural habitat. So that is the marvel of surgery, robotic surgery in a lion. So really, not such facilities are not available for the pets, for the horses even, in many of the countries. And then we come to the soft tissue surgery in the 10th section, which is very important. And I had a chance together with Dr. Jirwal to go to Jodhpur Zoo to see a cub which had bilateral cataract, congenital cataract. You can see the cataract here, cataract. This was congenital cataract in a cub. And unfortunately, operation was not done. But Dr. Jirwal has taken a lead to do cataract operation even in the cows, in the Goshalas, or cow shelters at Jodhpur. And it's more successful in the cattle if there is no more associated eye pathologies. And then some of the ophthalmic examinations like Schirmer tear test that tells about the dryness of the eye, at how much eye is dry. There is one condition in the dog, keratoconjunctivitis sicca, because dry eye disease is there. So this is diagnostic test. Sometimes there is an ulcer in the eye. So fluorescein dye test is being done to detect the ulcer. Then non-contact tonometry. Now this instrument is not touched to the cornea. From a distance, you know the tonometry, that is intraocular pressure. And normal, it should be 15 to 25 mm. Then ultrasonographical examination of eye tells you many details. So you need to have one convex or longitudinal or microconvex probe to do this. And you know about the hyperechoic lens and normal lens on ultrasonograms. Then you can do the cataract surgery by phaco-console, and you need to have operating microscope in the operation theater. So phacoemulsification is being done. These are the ophthalmic instrumentation we usually require for operative procedure. You can see here the cataract operation being done, lens is removed, and then immediate post-operative view you can see, then application of eye dressing after tarsography and how it is done. And you can see before pre-operative and after the cataract surgery, there is a very good transparency of the cornea. And enucleation of eyeball is done many times when there is a panophthalmia pus in the eyeball or some other pathology. Now, PET need attention when it discusses the ear, and you need to examine the ear by video otoscope. And here is the video otoscope. Auto tools are there. You can examine it. You can see the inflammation and other pathology. You can see the pictures. You can see the wax over here and the normal ear canal condition. And this is inflammation. And this is a tumor in the ear canal. So it tells you every detail. So tympanic membrane rupture is there. Otitis externa is there. Now otitis media is there. Now in some of the cases where the treatment is refractory and there is a fibrosis inside, canal is closed due to chronic inflammation, TECA surgery is total ablation of ear canal. We say that this operation is done, TECA, total ear canal ablation, and this is taken out and this is being closed, and this ear canal is totally closed. Here one opening is kept for the installation of the medicine. And similarly, a ZEPS operation is being done where a vertical ear canal is resected and a drain board is created over here. You can see somewhere here a drain board, and here it was a drain board. This is ZEPS operation in chronic otitis media cases. Now, digestive system is very important for the dog because dog is eating a lot of unusual things. It's playful with the toys and other unusual things that goes in the stomach. In metallic objects, they go in the stomach. You need to diagnose them by X-ray, and then surgery is done. You can see here, even with the CT scan, you can diagnose these foreign bodies. The wires are there, strings are there. Now this is a calculi, urinary calculi. This is another case. So you can see that in stomach, if there is a pathology at pylorus, then you need to go for two types of operation. If you connect the pylorus with duodenum, we say gastroduodenostomy. We call this as a Billroth 1 procedure. And if you connect the stomach with jejunum, then we call Billroth 2 procedure. This is surgical bypass procedure. And this is just when there is a pathology around pylorus. Then there is a hernia, there is a foreign object here, there is intussusception. You need to go for end-to-end anastomosis. And these days, stapling technique is being used to do end-to-end anastomosis, but this is a routine way of end-to-end anastomosis, which you can do. This is the finished end-to-end anastomosis. And a vet always faces challenges to treat an animal, whether this is a domestic or wild. So the teeth of animal is very, very important, whether this is an elephant or this is a dog. Now, would you believe that there is a European Veterinary Dental Forum, and they are organizing regular conferences, and the pachyderm dentistry is very, very important. Those dealing with the elephants, they know that a lot of pathologies of elephant tooth are there, and you need to address those. Intraoral radiography is needed in dogs just to ensure that which tooth you need to treat, which tooth you need to remove. So this is really necessary. These days, on table, these dental X-ray are available, and you can see the digital image directly on the laptop, and a very good diagnosis is made. Periodontal diseases, they are being done in many ways. If there is a fracture, inflammation, gingivitis, or tartar plaque formation is there, you can see here enamel is lost over here, and you need to repair these. And this is, you can see the tartar over here, and you need to remove this. Now again, optical coherence tomography OCT is used to see the canine dentogingival complex. And here you can see this complex, and in A picture, you see the supragingival calculus. So this is a calculus over here. This is a yellow thing is a calculus, but in B picture, you see a subgingival calculus. So subgingival. So this is below the gingiva. There is one calculus over there. And this is surgeon is using ultrasonic scaler to remove these scales, tartar plaques. Scaling and root planing is being done, and extensive generalized enamel hypoplasia is there. Metallic crowns are used. You can see here the metallic crowns. These metallic crowns are there, and you can use the dental implants for the lost tooth in the dogs. And these are the dental instrumentation and the facilities you need. Now we come to the section 12, that's cardiac disorders. So some of those, they need attention. Some of them are congenital, like aortic stenosis, patent ductus arteriosus, pulmonary stenosis, ventricular septal defect, mitral valve dysplasia, teratology of Fallot, and tricuspid dysplasia, etc. Then acquired one are pericardial diffusion, pericardial constriction, and cardiac neoplasia. The patent ductus arteriosus is really one which causes breathing problem, and respiratory distress is there, coughing is there, exercise intolerance is there, blood is thicker, arrhythmias are there, pink or bluish gums will be there. So you need to go for physical examination. You can see cyanotic gums. Here oral mucous membrane has become cyanotic, and you can see, of the heart, you can listen, you can take X-ray, and you can see the severe cardiomegaly over there, and the characteristic ductus bump you can see. Echocardiography also confirms this perfectly, and then you need to go for M-Bredger duct occluder. This instrument, this device is being done, and this is just to occlude the pervious arterial duct PDA by intravascular device. This is again interventional radiology which comes into the picture, and it is confirmed by the echocardiography. And now if you see the radiograph before operation, you can see a big heart, cardiomegaly was there. Immediately after operation, the heart's size started reducing, and after a month, you can see the heart size has reduced significantly. So this pervious arterial duct was treated successfully by these stent, and Then we come on the diode or carbon dioxide laser surgery, which gives excellent result because there is less bleeding, there is less pain, there is a precision of the surgery, and there is a faster recovery. So these two types of laser surgery equipments are there, and small tumors you can remove by these. And then the laser retinopexy is there. Now the Bellus retinal detachment over here, you can see the same lesion after retinopexy. You can see the whitish spots. This is retinopexy. Retina is fixed again so that there is no more blindness in the dog. So that's how we know about this through ERG also. Now, intraoral laser surgery is being done in animals, and the diode laser surgery is being done to remove small tumors and growths. And then laser therapy is done in arthritis of dogs. This is also really very popular. Now we come to the orthopedic surgery, and this is part 14 of the our presentation. And orthopedic surgery, the total hip replacement in the cat as a prosthesis, you can see it's a very popular and most advanced methods. You can see the femoral fracture repair by the compression plating and using the screws. Total hip replacement is there. You can see the diverse fractures and healing, because fractures are of various types. And here in our institute, there is a leading orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Anil Bishnoi, performing skeletal fixation in dogs. He did the fixation in calf humerus fracture as well. You can see this is before surgery and this is after surgery, a very good weight bearing over there. And this is K-nail, which was being put inside. And then cruciate ligament here in dogs is very common. You can see there is one anterior and posterior cruciate ligament, and this ruptured cruciate ligament leads to anterior and posterior drawer movement. So drawer movement comes and there is a mobility in a stifle and animal is lame. And this you have to confirm the drawer movement by making it anterior posterior. And then the operation is known as the tibial plateau leveling osteotomy, which is very effective, and it returns the injured stifle joint to full function. So here we see that this TPLO surgery is being done, and this is a special surgery being adapted all over the world, and this is after surgery, dog is bearing perfect weight. This is intraoral ophthalmic orthopedic surgery in camels done at our institute. Then in section 15, the spinal surgery, that is intervertebral disc disease in dogs, is really very common. We see that the disc is prolapsed, this disc material, it presses the spinal cord whenever the animal jumps or in some of the movements, and this is pressing. There are two parts. Outer is annulus fibrosus and the central is nucleus pulposus. So there is a rupture of nucleus pulposus and annulus. This nucleus pulposus, by rupturing annulus fibrosus, presses the spinal cord, and you can see that there is a severe pain, and the hind quarter is either paraplegic or there is a paralysis, and you can see at various places a disc is pressing the spinal cord. And here you can see a variety of the prolapses. And here on the CT scan, you can see the prolapse over here and over here. Then PET spinal surgery in South Florida is really a very good specialization, and only one hospital is needed. Here dorsal laminectomy is being done. You can see here that the dorsal spine is being removed so that there is a decompression. The spinal cord gets more space over here, and animal is relieved of the pain. And sometimes spinal stapling technique is being done, and you can see the use of the orthopedic wire and pins. You can see here, and they are just adhered to this so that there is no more movement of these vertebrae. You can use the plates and screws also to immobilize the spinal processes, and so that there is no movement. And here there is a laminectomy, hemilaminectomy being done over here. Now, the diagnostic treatment of surgical affection of urinary system in canines it needs a special attention. That is 16th part of the presentation, and we should know the anatomy. We should know the anatomy of kidney and genital system. The international urology or endourology in small animal is very popular these days, and use of minimally invasive alternatives using interventional radiology and interventional endoscopic techniques are being used. Now, ENL, that is endoscopic nephrolithotomy in a dog, is being done, and you can assess the renal pelvis with the sheath by percutaneous method, and then you can just put a lithotripper over here, and then break the stone inside the renal pelvis and can remove it from the basket. The renal pelvis is empty over here. No more stones are there. Here we see that a stone inside a basket. This is a basket with the endoscope, which is cystoscope or urinary endoscope is there, and this basket will retrieve the stone or calculi. Now, cystoscopic images during percutaneous cystolithotomy. Here, antegrade cystoscopy was done visualizing bladder stones. You can see the bladder stones, and here with this basket, you can remove some of the calculi. And most of these are removed by the basket because they are round, not rough. And here you can see the tip of the catheter, and here in the urethra, and here there are calculi. Percutaneous nephrolithotomy is being done, so from the skin directly at the renal pelvis. So that's under sonography. You can just put this catheter here, and then you can break the calculi, and then you can retrieve the calculi. Then this lithotripsy is done by the sound waves, and sound waves, they will just crack the calculi in small pieces. You can see here the small pieces, and then they go out in the urine because big calculi cannot pass through the urine. And shockwave lithotripsy is the same, and you can just apply probe over here, and then you can apply shock wave, and then it will break the calculi, and then these minor pieces are removed with the urine. Then in ureters, there are two problems. One is you can see that ectopic ureter. Ureter is ectopic. And second is that opens somewhere else other than bladder. So this is opening not in bladder, but in the urethra, directly into the urethra. And for this, we have to see, and when we diagnose it by contrast radiography, we see that here there is stenosis, obstruction in the ureter. So we see that dilatation of ureter, hydronephrosis has taken place. This is a normal. So we see here hydronephrosis even in the kidney. So subcutaneous ureteral bypass system is applied, where directly from the pelvis of the kidney, the catheter will open into the urinary bladder, and ureteral stenting is being done, and the right from the pelvis, it will go into the urinary bladder, and this is also subcutaneous stenting, bypass stenting. And bladder stones are quite common, and by cystotomy, these are being removed, and many times you'll find numerous bladder stones over there. This cystolith being removed from a bitch, it's a mono lith is there, it's a round one, and occupied almost entire volume of the urinary bladder. So canine urinary system poses big challenges to the canine vets and surgeons, hence always stay updated. So friends, when our topic was on surgico-diagnostic technology, I showed you so many things. You will ask that we also want to learn how to get skilled, where to go to learn the modern surgico-diagnostic technology. That's a valid question. So in the last section, I will suggest you that learn skill courses. Just search the Google, you will know that how many countries are organizing skill courses. Laparoscopy, thoracoscopy training programs, they go on. You can just see these programs and participate in those. Orthopedic surgery training programs, they go on, and you can see the AO Foundation, Switzerland, which are organizing orthopedic training programs in many countries. And you can just get yourself registered with AO Foundation. Ophthalmology hands-on training workshops are taking place these days at many places. Even Dr. S.K. Zirwal has done at Veterinary College Bikaner, at Veterinary College Jaipur and Udaipur. So these must be attended by the interested practicing vets, and they should learn familiarity with ophthalmic instruments then, and then they can do the surgery. So attending workshop is highly important, and many new innovations are there which you should know and try to adapt to your clinic as a new technology. So, say for example, harmonic scalpel. This instrument cuts by ultrasonic vibration instead of electric current, and it simultaneously cuts and cauterizes the tissue. So harmonic scalpel is these days has replaced traditional scalpel. Then robotic surgery, it's a science for today and tomorrow, and we can use robotic surgery on animals. Wait for opportune time, which is ahead, when many institutes, they have robotic surgery over there. Then operating room with no people, in such robotic surgery, you can guide it from outside. There is Da Vinci system. It translates surgeon's hand movement at the console in real time, bending and rotating the instrument while performing the procedure. Autonomous robot performing surgery in living pigs, where the droid stitched up broken bowels. So this was taken from the Science Translational Medicine, that such a nice autonomous robot surgery was being done. Biocompatible 3D tracking system has potential to improve robot-assisted surgery. So this is also a new adjunct to the robotic surgery. Cooperative telesurgery, where surgeons are present both at the patient and remotely, and also use the tele-mentoring junior surgeons. And then the senior surgeons, they help them to do the surgery. So friends, the continuing veterinary education program of Alembic is a big advantage to all the vets to leap forward with emerging technologies in diagnosis and surgery of animals. I give you a big thank you for a patient hearing and staying with us, staying with the Alembic, listening to the webinar, to all my foreign participants, or staying with the Alembic, listening to the webinar, to all my foreign participants, to organizers, to moderator. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a practical presentation. Everybody is saying it is applied presentation, and mostly, sir, I can say this is an eye opener for our industry. Entire industry is an eye opener. Now I will invite our moderator for today's webinar, Dr. Suresh Kumar Jairwal. He is assistant professor in the Department of Veterinary Surgery and Radiology, College of Veterinary Animal Sciences, Bikaner, Rajasthan. A brief introduction about Dr. Jairwal. He also had one webinar with us, that is large animal ophthalmology. He is having more than 20 years of experience in clinical experience. He is the first veterinary surgeon in the Rajasthan state to perform successful cataract surgery in a dog with fucoemulsifier technique. He is presently serving in a College of Veterinary Animal Sciences, Bikaner, as assistant professor since 2014. His contribution in large animal and small animal is very much in terms of radiology, ultrasonography, and technique of anesthesia and ophthalmology. At present, he has screened more than 2,000 blind cattle for various ophthalmological diseases through his clinical and ophthalmological experience since 2018. Now, over to Dr. Jairwal.
Thanks, Dr. Shinde. Thanks for, I think, I should thank Honorable respected Professor Dr. T.K. Gehlot, sir. I think I'm audible. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
audible, sir.
Yeah. So, thanks to Honorable respected T.K. Gehlot, sir, for such an excellent, mind-blowing webinar. Sir, you have enlightened us regarding advanced surgical diagnostic techniques, and during your introductory slides, you have very well explained the need to shift from old to new to adapt new technologies. And sir, after looking into the chat box and question answer session, I'm sure that this webinar has ignited the mind and thought of many scientists regarding the use and availability of advanced techniques in India. And you have very elaborately discussed regarding the regenerative medicines for equines. Then we were very much aware regarding the platelet-rich plasma. But today we came to know the new word platelet-derived protein therapy that you have also described in your webinar. And you have very well told about the future of veterinary medicine using virtual and augmented reality and artificial intelligence. Then role of virtual simulations in use of training system, and then artificial intelligence you have discussed. Then a very important and useful software which you have told regarding is vetology software for quick diagnostic help to many vets. And you have also discussed regarding thermology, then ultra modern operation theaters, PACS, picture archives system, then PET scanning. And we have also seen in your webinar a fusion of PET and CT scan. Then very well you have told regarding the nuclear scintigraphy using radioisotopes, then laparoscopic surgery, and many more. So I think it would not be my capacity to discuss regarding your webinar. It was an excellent and mind-blowing for all of us. Now I would like to ask Dr. Shinde, should we start the question answer session, or you will like to have a break? Dr. Shinde?
I will request Mr. P.
On behalf of Olympic, I thank Professor Dr. T.K. Gehlot sir for his wonderful presentation, and it is really helpful, in this never-ending learning process. So it might have helped many of the veterinarians, field veterinarians, how to go about some of the critical surgery procedures. And thank you very much, sir. And now some of the questions, people are raising, if it is answered today, it is fine. Suppose if the questions are many, it will be addressed a little later. So Santosh, you can go ahead in your next round of program.
To one and all. Regarding, as we know, in the industry, Alembic is known to launch pioneer product in the veterinary segment. And as today's topic is also newer thing. So like in the antibiotic segment, now our generation is increasing. So we brought a new product in the antibiotic segment. That is, as we know, that Alembic is known for the most of the pioneer product launch in the antibiotic segment. In 1992, we launched Moxil, that is amoxicillin fluoxetine combination, in the first time in the veterinary industry. Then 2004, we launched Except 54 sodium in Indian veterinary market. In 2008, we launched Incept. All these are the brand leader now, and we are the pioneer to launch this product. Looking to this, as we know now, as One Health concept is growing day by day, now Ministry also wanted to have the One Health chamber in the Commons, and all are worried due to this COVID pandemic, One Health. So using the antibiotic, judicial use of antibiotic is very much necessary. That's why whenever you are prescribing the antibiotic, look at that it should be from the exclusively veterinary antibiotic. In that, as we are evolving, previously we used to send the letter by this pigeon. Now we are using the email from the normal telephone. Now it is smartphone. So we are upgrading ourselves. Likewise, like this way, bacteria is also evolving. They are also creating the resistance. So it is time to switch to the another next generation antibiotic, introducing Cifarol, that is cifoquinone sulfate, fourth generation ciprofloxacin for all type of bacterial infection, the exclusively veterinary antibiotic launched by the Alembic Pharmaceutical Limited. Its composition is cifoquinone sulfate, okay, along with the sodium bicarbonate as a diluent. You can give it in the intramuscular route. Its deuterogenic structure facilitates faster absorption and rapid penetration. It is effective against ESBL producing bacteria as well as resistant bacteria. Its effectivity has low MIC and higher sensitivity. It's improved overall therapeutic efficacy. The fourth generation cephalosporin. It has fast action, a longer duration of action, that is, you can maintain the MIC up to 24 hours. That is Cifarol. Indication, if you talk about in cattle and buffalo, you can use it in RTI infection, mastitis, foot rot, and bacterial septicemia. In horses, we can use this product in respiratory tract infection, bacterial septicemia, and fall diarrhea. Sheep and goat, pneumonia, respiratory tract infection use. In pigs, we can use it in mastitis, metritis, meningitis, and arthritis. If we talk about the dosage and administration, cattle, buffalo, camel, and horses, 1 milligram per kg body weight, and calf, sheep, and goat, 2 milligram per kg body weight. I will take you through the
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will invite Dr. Jairwal sir to take question and answer. Amit, you can display the question.
Thank you, Dr. Shinde. So, am I audible? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
So, Dr. Shinde, I think there are 13 text in the question answer box, and
So I have shared. Is it visible, sir? I have compiled the questions.
okay. So I should ask these questions. Okay. Once again, good afternoon, sir. Am I audible to you, sir? Hello.
Yes, sir. Your voice is audible, sir.
No, no. I think Professor T.K. Galot sir is not in connection with us. Okay, he has come. Sir, am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So, sir, there are few questions regarding this webinar, and most of the text in question answer box is, some kind of appreciation and lot of things. The participant have enjoyed it very much. But a few questions I would like to present before you. Question number one is 3D meant for fractures, cataract, tendon, and ligament damage also, sir? So I think he is Dr. Murli Nath from Product and he want to ask that is this 3D can be useful for fractures, cataract, tendons, and ligament damage also?
Yes, any CT scan which is taken, you can make a 3D picture. Now they have a very good software. And if you have taken that of a bone, fractured bone, then it will show you fracture from all around. And cataract, then of course, it will show the eye. And tendon, ligament, of course, if you have taken that of limb, you can make a 3D picture. But that's with the only CT scan.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, sir, please explain about field level blood examination as if in human for blood glucose examination. Dr. Vasant Madasamy, I think he wanted to ask that the glucometers we are using in human beings, can they be used for estimation of blood glucose level in dogs in field condition also?
No, but he says that like in human, blood glucose examination is done anywhere. So for animals, every animal doesn't need blood examination, but sometimes it needs. Say, for example, I give you a good example. Few days ago, I received one Pomeranian dog, and the owner said that, sir, the dog is not eating well and it is a bit lazy. And I took temperature, it was normal. So then I told that I had to take blood and examine it. So when CBC was done, there was neutrophilia, WBC was also up. And then we examined it further. It had a tartar problem in the mouth, halitosis. So oral infection was there. And then in surgery department, the scaling was done. And from next very day, the dog became very active. And 3-4 days antibiotic, it was all right. So sometimes to diagnose a problem which cannot be diagnosed otherwise clinically, you should go for blood examination, CBC, and if further it is needed, then you should go for LFT and RFT, liver function test and renal function test. So that's needed.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, please give some information regarding some foreign veterinary licensing examinations and residential programs. So I think in your last slide, you have very well told where the training can be done. But even
yeah, I refer you to the Google University. You just go in Google and type and you get a lot of information. And certainly, even when I go to foreign conferences, I come to know only through Google that which conference is taking place where, because they don't have email addresses of all of us. So it's we have to be proactive. So you have to be proactive and just go on Google and see it.
Next question is, sir, can you put some light related to use of stem cell therapy?
Yeah. In spinal injury cases. Yes. In spinal injury cases, this is highly successful. And I have seen some of the examples while searching it on the net. And there are some papers also where stem cell therapy was given. And it was even given intrathecally or epidurally. And good results were there. So stem cell therapy is really very good and it gives good results provided you diagnose it properly and put the injections at a proper place of the stem cells. So this can help, definitely.
And one more.
Sir, these are the questions only. One more is there. This is actually not a question, but words of appreciation given for the sir in Q&A box, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Karunanidhi. He has stated that Professor Dr. Gehlot's recent advanced information regarding artificial intelligence is great, provoking my mind to apply in dairy farm cattle and buffaloes to diagnose disease condition instantly. Congratulations for conducting excellent webinar. So nice to see.
Let me tell him that already such softwares are there, and there is one professor from Bombay Veterinary College. He has prepared one software, and that is being adopted by many dairy farmers in MP and Maharashtra, and that gives you information that which cow is sick and how to proceed for treatment. If you have a herd bigger than 500 cows, it's not possible to see each and every cow. Only milker reaches to the cow, and milker will give some phonic information which goes directly and is recorded, and they just see one person sitting on the computer that cow number so and so is sick, and then they go accordingly. So yes, smart farms, I talked about the smart farm. You have to use sensors, and otherwise there are softwares also available these days, and you can just do it. You have to contact a professor of medicine. I forgot his name, and he's from Bombay Veterinary College, and he developed one very good software, and he received a prize from the FAO worth, I think, 10 lakhs about for developing this software. So it's there, already there.
Got the question.
Sir, these were the only questions. Sir, these were the only questions given in Q&A box.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. My pleasure. Thank you, sir. It's a Dr. Abdul Samad. Yeah, the name has come, Dr. Abdul Samad. Somebody has written. So you can contact Dr. Abdul Samad. He is from Bombay Veterinary College. And yes.
So
Herdman's name of software is Herdman.
no more questions, sir. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Sinde.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Jairwal, sir, as well as thank you, Galu, sir. We'll proceed to the vote of thanks. Before we proceed to vote of thanks, our next webinar is on 25th 7th, 11 a.m. IST timing. It is on the blood transfusion in large animal under field condition, an innovative approach by Dr. Vikas Chattar. Okay. And this is regarding the webinar, regarding vote of thanks. The warm and graceful evening to Honorable T.K. Gehlot, sir, Dr. S.K. Jairwal, sir, and all the participants. It is my pleasure to propose vote of thanks speech and acknowledge the contribution of those who make this webinar successful. Sir, your presentation was very applied. On the behalf of Alembic Pharmaceutical and from all the participants, I like to thank sir. Your webinar is very informative and practical and applied, sir. I already said, sir, it is eye-opener for the entire veterinary industry. So everybody will now go to the Google, search the new courses, and this they will apply in their clinics, sir, and day-to-day practice. In future also, sir, we will take benefit of such interesting and useful session that will upgrade our knowledge so we can serve the society. Last but not least, I would like to thank all the participating veterinarians from India as well as abroad, field veterinarian as well as Alembic staff, Mr. P. Karunanidhi, sales team from R.K. Sharma, and entire PMT team for making this webinar successful. Once again, thank you, Honorable T.K. Gehlot, sir,